Today we will be discussing two important phenomena. In fact, two important things about our constitution. One is the salient features of Indian constitution, and the second part of our discussion will be covering the philosophy of Indian constitution. All right. So let's go ahead with the idea of salient features of Indian Constitution. We have already discussed about our Constitution, its constitutional legacies, starting from the British rule to all the resolutions passed by Indian National Congress and the important milestones achieved during national movement. So we had a detailed discussions. At least we are having a context in our mind that where how our constitution was being made and who are the peoples responsible for the making of our constitution and what contains the Indian constitution. So finally now we are at the stage of discussing what are the salient features of Indian constitution. So, but before I go with the idea of salient features, there is one complaint always being exercised against Indian Constitution is the fact that Indian Constitution is a borrowed constitution. Indian Constitution is a borrowed constitution. It has been taken from the many sources of the world, and many people says that it is a patchwork, but I still feel that it's a beautiful patchwork drawn from different sources, no doubt about it. So we are at the moment when Indian Constitution was to be made, lots of constitutions were in existence, written constitution, and we had a discussion on this, that how constitution making started in the world, and those constitutions were an inspiration for us. We have drawn sources from them, and if I quote aptly Dr. Ambedkar, which he says that our likes to ask whether there can be anything new in a constitution framed at this hour in the history of the more than 100 years have rolled when the first written constitution was drafted. It has been followed by many other countries, reducing their constitution to writing. Given these facts, all constitutions in their main provisions must look similar. The only new things, if there be any, in a constitution framed so late in the day are the variations made to remove the faults and to accommodate it to the needs of the country. See the statement by the B.R. Ambedkar in the Constituent Assembly. It's a clear-cut admission that we have borrowed our constitution from different sources, and it is an acknowledgement. And there is no wrong in borrowing the best practices, the best provisions of the world. So if we look at that, who were the sources, who were the countries from where the provisions of Indian constitutions were being drawn. So I must first highlight the role of the different acts passed by the British regime till India's Independence Act 1947. And we had a detailed discussion that how Regulating Act 1773 contributed, how Charter Acts contributed, how Council Acts contributed, how Government of India Acts contributed in the making of the India's constitution. But looking back on the entire conglomeration of the laws passed by the British Parliament, we had a deeper influence on our constitution making from the Government of India Acts 1935. A substantial part of the Indian constitution was drawn from the provisions of the Government of India Act 1935. So let us look at what were the important features which were being drawn from the Government of India Act. The first one is the federal features. India is a federal country, and this provision and this idea came up when Government of India Act 1935 clearly prescribed for India's federalism. So India's future polity shall be a federal polity, And given the circumstances in our country, we have gone with the federal principles of the governance. This was being clearly stated in Government of India Act. So federalism is from the whole provisions is from the Government of India Act 1935. Similarly, the office of the governor, there must be a governor as a head of the state provinces. This idea was also being prescribed in the Government of India Act 1935. Similarly, the judiciary, the Public Service Commission, the emergency provisions and the administrative details which are there in our constitution were been drawn from the Government of India Act 1935. So the Government of India Act 1935 is having a deeper impact on the constitution making of India. So you must keep those things in mind. Similarly, since British were ruling over us, they have ruled over us for more than 200 years. They have not only ruled over us, but they have also introduced all their institutional mechanism, most of their laws to the Indian case scenario. And therefore, it was but natural that we were going to be influenced by the British as well. So whatever the form of government that we have adopted, that India shall be a parliamentary form of government. This idea came up from the British itself. We have adopted the Westminster model of the United Kingdom in our system because we were so used to of the British model of this representative mechanism where there shall be a parliament and whosoever will gain the majority in the parliament will form the government, and that government will be accountable to the parliament. This whole idea is called Westminster model, and this Westminster model is a British model. Similarly, the idea of rule of law, that everyone is subject to the law and there shall be a rule of law, not a rule of the person or the individual. This idea of rule of law is also been drawn from the British. Similarly, that legislative procedures which we are having today in India is also drawn from the British, from the Britain. Similarly, that there must be a single citizenship. Most of the federal polity, like United States of America, they are having dual citizenship. But India went for a single citizenship. You may be living in Telangana, you may be living in Kerala, you may be living in Assam or Uttar Pradesh. You will be having only one citizenship. You are a citizen of India. This whole idea of single citizenship was also drawn from England. Similarly, that there shall be a cabinet system. The cabinet system is a core system which consists of the most important functionaries and ministers of the government. They form the cabinet and they make an advices to the president and other people, and they, based on their decisions, the policies are being made. So this whole idea of having a cabinet in India was also drawn from Britain. And if you look at that, there must be a prerogative writs. The idea of prerogative writs shall was also being drawn from the British Constitution. Similarly, there shall be a bicameralism, that the Parliament shall have two houses of the Parliament. We have seen that there is a Lok Sabha and there is a Rajya Sabha. Many a times people raise questions, why do we need Rajya Sabha? But still it works in holding the government accountable when many things are being passed in the Lok Sabha. But if the government is not having the majority in the Rajya Sabha, there is some kind of check is being exercised on the arbitrary exercise of power by the government. So having a Rajya Sabha is also an utilitarian idea. It has its own utility. So we had adopted for a bicameral legislature. So bicameral legislature is all about having two houses of the Parliament. This idea also. So similarly, we have taken lots of things from the then existing written Constitution of United States of America. We have already discussed that how Philadelphia Convention framed the US Constitution, and they have produced a masterpiece, and that has given a lesson to the most of the future countries to go with a written constitution model. So whatever fundamental rights we are having in our constitution, it is modeled on the lines of the United States Constitution. So the idea of fundamental rights in the Constitution is drawn from the United States of America, US Constitution. Similarly, that there must be an independent judiciary. The judiciary shall be independent, and there must be a judicial review. Judicial review is all about that, looking at the validity of the law passed by the Indian Parliament. It is a power available to the judiciary, that to what extent the laws made by the parliament is consistent with the provisions of the Indian constitution. This power is also available with the judiciary. So this whole judicial independence and judicial review idea is drawn from the US constitution. Similarly, that if president is going wrong and if he has done some breach of the Indian constitution, and there must be a case scenario where president need to be impeached, the whole idea of the impeachment of the president is also drawn from the US constitution. See that there must be a removal of the Supreme Court and High Court judges. How a judge of the Supreme Court or High Court be removed? The whole procedure we have drawn from the US constitution. Similarly, that there must be a vice president. If there is a president, there must be a vice president. In case that president is not able to discharge his duties, the vice president will take over the power of the president. So this whole position of the vice president is also derived from the US constitution. So friends, you can see that the Government of India Act 1935 is having an impact. The British government is having an impact. On the US constitution is having an impact. Not only these things, there were many other constitutions at that point of time were having a deeper impact. Our constitution makers have studied those available written constitution and incorporated their best practices in our constitution. This is something very, very matter of pride, that our constitution makers were not making the constitution in vacuum. So they had some contests. They have consulted the constitution. They have consulted the best mind, legal luminaries, legal systems and documents. See, for example, Irish constitution, the constitution of the Ireland, that whatever directive principles of state policy we are having today, it is drawn, it is inspired from the Irish constitution. Similarly, that there shall be a nomination of Rajya Sabha members. We have seen that people in Rajya Sabha are nominated from literature, arts, and science and social. So these are people who belong to a different walks of life, having expertise. They shall be nominated in Rajya Sabha. This idea also came up from the Irish constitution. Not only that, we have a method of election for the president. So how president is going to be elected? A president is elected by means of an electoral college using a single transferable vote. This whole mechanism of method of election of the president, we have drawn it from the Irish constitution. Similarly, then there is a country, and it's a very prominent country in the world and best model for federalism after United States of America, that is called Canada. So we have also drawn many things from the Canada. Like, I'll give you an example that India shall be a federalism, but with a strong center. The idea of a strong center while retaining the feature of the federalism is an idea drawn from the Canadian Constitution. Similarly, that there was a vesting of residuary powers with the center. You can see that 7th schedule of Indian Constitution gives a detailed division of power between center and state. There is a union list on which the center can make the laws. There is a state list on which the state can make the laws. There is a concurrent list in which certain items are there on which both center and state both can make the law. But at the same time, there is another residuary items. The items which are not given in center list, union list, or state list, or concurrent list, who will make the law? But here in the residuary items, only union can make the law. So that state is not empowered to make the laws on residuary items. This idea was also drawn from the Constitution, Canadian Constitution. Similarly, there must be an appointment of state governors by the center. That it is center who is going to appoint the governor of each state. This idea was also drawn from the Canadian Constitution. You can see that how much we are impressed with the models of the world constitutions. Similarly, if I take one more example, that advisory jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. For example, that if by at any moment of time, President of India feels that the advice of the Supreme Court shall be sought on some legal issues, then President may refer that bill or that policy matter to the President and to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court will give its own opinion. Like, for example, many instances are there in Indian political history when President sent some bill. Like Kerala Education Bill was being sent to the Supreme Court for the opinion of the then Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, that whether that Kerala Education will hold the merits of the law and constitution. And for example, the Supreme Court cannot deny that it cannot advise on the matter referred to it by the President of India. So this whole mechanism is also drawn from the Canadian Constitution. So by that time, there was another well-recognized constitution, was Australian Constitution, and it was being modeled. We must have a concurrent list. I just told you that in the 7th schedule of Indian Constitution, there is a union list, there is a state list, and there is a concurrent list. Concurrent list is a list on which both center and state can make the law. So this whole idea of having a concurrent list in the Indian Constitution was taken from the Australian Constitution. Similarly, that there must be a freedom of trade. This whole freedom of trade idea was also taken from the Australian Constitution. There must be a commerce and intercourse, that this idea was also taken from the Australian Constitution. Similarly, that there must be a joint sitting of the upper house and lower house. Means why it happens that if there are some conflict between Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, then there is a provision in Indian Constitution that a joint session will be called, and then the matter will be debated and discussed in the joint session, and majority will be sought during the joint session and law will be passed. So during the conflict situation, a joint sitting shall be there. This idea is also drawn from the Australian Constitution. Similarly, that at that point of time, there was a Weimar Constitution of Germany. That Weimar Constitution has also given us a lesson, and that lesson we have drawn in terms of suspension of fundamental rights during emergency. That if there are some national emergency in India, fundamental rights cannot be in place, because state during that period of time need lots of discretionary powers, and therefore it has to work with greater determination and strength, and therefore fundamental rights of the people in the best national interest shall be suspended during the national emergency. So this idea was drawn from the Weimar Constitution of Germany. Then there was Soviet Union, then called USSR. We have taken fundamental duties from Soviet Union, that we must not have only rights and rights and rights. Every citizen must have duty towards their own country, towards their own society. So Soviet Union has made us learn the whole idea of fundamental duties, and therefore we incorporated it as a part of Indian Constitution in the Article 51A. Similarly, that there must be an idea of justice. You can see that in preamble we are talking about justice, and that ideal of justice, be it social, economic, and political. The whole propositions we have drawn from the Soviet Constitution. Similarly, and there was another constitution at that point of time called French Constitution. It has it has its own experiences of constitution making. Many times the constitution of the France was being revised, but by then Constitution of the France, we have drawn the idea of republic, that India shall not be having a hereditary monarchy. We will be having a head of a state who is to be directly elected by the people. People will elect its own head of the state. This whole idea of having an elected head of the state was drawn from French Constitution, and we have gone with the idea of republic. The ideas of liberty, equality, and fraternity we have drawn from France and French Revolution. We have already seen that this whole claim and the center of mobilization was the idea of liberty, equality, and fraternity. the in the 1789 French revolutions, and that has impacted the French Constitution as well. And from there, this idea we have drawn for Indian Constitution. So, Alan, this is all about the constitution making that we have already discussed. There were many other constitutions as well apart from these, and at that point of time, South Africa's constitution was there, South African constitution, where we have drawn that procedure for the amendment of the constitution, how our constitution is going to be amended. That procedure, which is being already being prescribed in Article 368 of our Indian Constitution, where the procedure of amendment is being discussed in detail and the kind of majorities are there. This idea we have drawn from the South African constitution. Similarly, that how that members of the upper houses are to be elected, the election of the members of the Rajya Sabha. This idea we have also taken from the South Africa. So whole things that the people says that the Indian constitution is a borrowed constitution. We agree with those facts, that no doubt we have imitated, we have borrowed, but we have borrowed not blindly. We have borrowed the idea, we debated, discussed, and what is the best provisions to suit the Indian conditions, we have done it. So that is what the whole situations with India, but many other constitutions were not able to do that. So if we see that if anybody says that we have borrowed, fine, but we have borrowed the best practices, the best provisions, the best system. This is what I want to say. If you are having any questions, you can raise your hand. No questions? So can we move to the next feature of the Indian Constitution? So fine. So that you must have learned that our constitution is the most comprehensive constitution. It's the largest constitution, biggest document in the world, and the reasons are quite clear. I just told you that it has drawn from multiple sources. It has a history of constitution making for 100 years. We have also drawn from our ancient to medieval to modern times practices. We have accommodated the aspirations, the needs of our people in our constitution. We have also incorporated the best practices of the world, and therefore it is quite natural that Indian constitution is going to be the longest constitution of the world. And there are many more reasons. If you look at that, Indian constitution is, when it was being drafted and adopted by us on 26th November 1949, it has 395 article, 8 schedules, and it was divided into 22 parts and with some lakhs of words in it. So it's quite a big document. Today, India's constitution is far bigger, with 104 amendments, with more additions, and we have added more articles to the existing the whole framework of 395. So adding 395 like that, A, B, C, if we calculate that, more than 450 articles are there in our constitution. And we have also increased many schedules. For example, we added anti-defection law. We have also incorporated the Panchayati Raj and the municipal institutions. With adding more schedules, we have reached to 12 schedule, from 8 to 12 schedule, from 22 parts to 25 parts, with 5 appendixes. So we are a largest written constitution, largest known constitution is to be called to India. And similarly, if we compare that US constitution, only 7 articles are there. 7 articles, and in the US Constitution, and similarly that if you will look at the Australian Constitution, there are 128 articles are there, and 7 articles in US, 128 articles in Australia, and India is having 395 articles. It's quite big in size. Means we have tried to explain everything. Everything we have tried to incorporate the best things whatever prevailing at that point of time. So our constitution was a constitution based on the multiple experiences. So we have tried to look at those experiences and try to deal in the constitution itself. Similarly, that other constitution, other federal constitutions, where there was a clear cut provisions that there must be a constitution for the states, there must be a constitution for the union. But our constitution contains both the constitution. We are not having two separate constitution that states will have its own constitution and this union will have. So we have the constitutions provisions dealing with both the case scenario. For the it represents the interest of the people, it represents the interest of the states, it represents the interest of the union as well. So the state constitution is also incorporated in our constitution. Similarly, that it has a detailed distribution of legislative, administrative, and financial powers between union and the state. No other constitution having a detailed explanations and provisions dealing with the division of power. Similarly, that the vastness of our country require that much of explanations, because you know that we are a multicultural country and we have lots of issues. We have a linguistic issues, we have a communal questions, we have financial matters, and we have so many things. So entire thing that was being considered. We had a different case scenario for the tribal areas. We have a different history with dealing with the provincial states. We had to accommodate the interest of the certain scheduled and tribal regions, backward classes, the minorities, and the linguistic groups as well. We have also to deal with the language. We have made part of it. So India was a unique case, and with such a diversity which no other country could claim, we had accommodated the concerns of every sections of the society within our own constitution, and therefore our constitution became more bulky. Similarly, that since all the units of Indian union are of the same type, the constitution had to make provisions for all these distinct type. That, for example, space provisions have been inserted to meet the regional problems and demands of certain states. Like, for example, Nagaland is having its own demand, Assam is having its own demand, Manipur, Sikkim, Mizoram, and many states like Jammu and Kashmir as well. They had different history, different claims, and we had made some concessions to them. Some special provisions were also being added in our constitution, and therefore our constitution become bulky. Similarly, that we have an elaborate chapter on fundamental rights, and each explained with all its restrictions and imposed thereon. So when we can exercise rights, that explanation is all. So there it also includes a chapter on fundamental duties, and we have a detailed directive principle of the state policy. A lot of things are being incorporated, which otherwise could not have been possible in other states. So if we are having a bulky and longest constitution, we have reasons for having it. We were the latest constitution. Other constitutions which were being framed before India, they had different experiences. They wanted to give only broader outlines, but we thought of going with a detailed outline so that no dispute and conflict arise in future. Therefore, we are a longest constitution. That is one feature of the Indian constitution. Second one is that Indian constitution is a written constitution. So that we have put every provisions in writing, unlike the Britain and the New Zealand. There are two more constitutions which are not written, that New Zealand constitution probably, and the Britain for surely they are not having a written constitution. But we adopted that we must have a written constitution like the Constitution of the United States of America, Canada and France, India too have a written constitution. And if you have a written constitution, you can avoid the ambiguity. So it helps in the interpretations of the constitution, and it also caters the needs of the people with a direct reference in writing. So we are a constitution which is written and properly. And the third feature, we have a thought of that as a silent feature is that we have adopted the idea of popular sovereignty. And the idea is that popular sovereignty is all about what? Sovereignty is all about supreme power. Who is supremely powerful in India? So we clearly stated, we answered this question in our preamble, that we the people of India are supreme. We the people of India are sovereign. We the people of India are democratic. It's all about that we the people who is more powerful. The sovereignty lies with the people of India, and this is clearly being affirmed and reaffirmed in our constitutions. We have a chapter on detailed chapter on elections. We are having a regular elections. See that there are many countries who became independent with us, but they are not able to survive their democracy. But the biggest success of India lies in the survival of its democracy for around more than 70 years. Other countries had experienced multiple coups in their regions who got independence with us. There are, but because we had developed a kind of system where the will of the people is being conceded ultimately, and that is the whole picture. So therefore, the will of the people will ultimately prevail on the government. It's not the army, it's not any other lobby, it's not about the civil society organization, but the power lies with the people, a body of people in India. So we have adopted that. Popular is all about, it's the people's sovereignty, popular sovereignty. We have gone with that principle. You can see that the last line of the preamble. The first line is, we the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. Similarly, the last line that is, we on this day of we give to ourselves this, we adopt, enact, and to give to ourselves this constitution on 26th November 1949. Means people giving to themselves this whole constitution, means the framed by the people, and this is adopted by the people, enacted by the people. So the whole idea of popular sovereignty is enshrined in the philosophy, in the preamble of the constitution, and the chapter on the elections in India. So this is the third features. Similarly, that if I have to say that Indian features, that India is a sovereign democratic republic. So India is a democracy. India is a sovereign country. India is a republic country. So because you know that there were many challenges before we became independent. The British said that we cannot survive as a democracy. We have accepted this challenge, and we thought of that. No, we will not be going with the constitutional monarchy where there is a monarch, and that monarch is hereditary, enjoying the permanent tenure. But our constitution clearly said that no, our head of the state will be elected by the people. We will have an elected head of the state. We will also have the elected head of the government. So we make a distinction between head of the state and head of the government. Both are elected by the people of the country, and therefore we have also thought of that with the idea that the biggest achievement for India, that when we became independent, we have immediately gone with the idea of universal adult franchise. So in India, the elections were happening, the last elections which happened on the basis of Government of India Act 1935, which allowed only 30% adult population to take part in the elections. But when we became independent and first election happened, this happened on the principle of universal adult franchise. Whosoever were the adult were given the rights to vote in the election. So that it's the biggest exercise on the part of the country. Similarly, that sovereignty, that we are internally sovereign. Our laws are being made sovereign. No other external powers were supposed to make laws. No other powers were allowed to interfere in the internal spheres of our country. We were independent outside as well. We had made independent laws, policies, and governance. We have a better relations with the countries, and therefore we have become a sort of what I can say is a sovereign country in absolute sense of the term. Though we have adopted that, we have thought of becoming a member of the Commonwealth state, but that becoming a member of the Commonwealth was not about surrendering one's sovereignty, but it's all about an exercise. It was a decision by the free will, and you can come out of that Commonwealth at your free will. So it was not like that. That you can be mortgaged, you can be made slave again. So you were fully independent to exercise your will. Another feature of Indian Constitution is that Indian Constitution is both rigid and flexible. So if you look at that, the Indian Constitution is partly rigid and partly flexible, and the procedure is laid down by the Constitution for its amendment is neither very easy like England nor very tough like United States of America. So we have adopted both the model in our Constitution, that we have thought of multiple kinds of the amendment procedures. That there were absolute majority was needed to amend certain provisions. A simple majority was also needed to amend some of the provisions. And there are provisions for the special majority. So I guess we have thought of that. We can amend certain things with absolute majority. We amend certain things with special majority, and we amend certain things with a simple majority. And therefore, we have made a provisions that depending upon the time and circumstances and the things which are detailed in our Constitution, we have adopted both the procedures. So our Constitution can be amended, and we have seen that as keeping in view of the changing circumstances and new needs of the people, we have amended our Constitution 104 times. So the last amendment was all about extension of the reservation in the legislature and the center for the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe for another 10 years. So 104th amendment we have already done. So in that 70 years, we have amended 104 times our Constitution. Another feature, you can see that India has subscribed to the cabinet form of government. So cabinet form of government is there. We can say that the Constitution establishes the cabinet type of government both at the center in the and the provinces. The most distinctive feature of the cabinet system of the government is the complete and continuous responsibility of the executive. That cabinet cannot be arbitrary for its own decisions. Cabinet is all about a body of the chosen ministers who are to make policy decisions on behalf of the government, and they are collectively responsible to the parliament. And therefore we have thought of that cabinet system. And cabinet system, the head of the state occupies a position of a constitutional head. Like for example, our president is a constitutional head of the state, while the head of the cabinet or the head of the government is the prime minister, who exercises the real power, and that he is accountable to the parliament as well. So we have thought of going with the cabinet government, and that is another feature. We have also thought of that the nature of the Indian polity would be secular. So India is a secular state. This secularism in the West is all about that state shall be neutral in the religious affairs, while we said that no, India cannot be neutral. Indian society is a spiritual society, it's a religious society. So state cannot afford to be neutral. Therefore, we thought of going with the idea of Sarva Dharma Sambhava, equal respect for all religion. That was the motto for our secularism, though the word secularism was not mentioned in our Constitution, but our Constitution was secular in spirit and in its different dealings. But we clearly stated this word, inserted in our preamble in 1976, by means of the 42nd Amendment, which added the word secular. So India is a kind of polity which respect the sensibilities of the people, which allows everyone to profess, practice, and propagate their religion, which also helps people in some of the aspect. It doesn't deny grants to the minority institutions. It also that allows the conscience. If you do not believe in God, you cannot believe in God. The state will protect your matter of conscience. So this is all about that. The Indian case, Indian polity is a secular polity. Similarly, I told you that the earth feature of Indian constitution is Indian constitution provides for a kind of federal system, but with a unitary bias. So we have our own constitution, and this is most remarkable achievement of the Indian constitution is to confer upon a federal system. The strength of a unitary system was also being incorporated. So there is a clear cut federalism is all about what? There must be a division of power between center and state. We have already discussed that the seventh schedule is talking about the division of power. There must be having a independent judiciary. Indian constitution provides for the Indian independent judiciary. We must have a supreme constitution. Our constitution is supreme. There is always a supremacy of Indian constitution because no law can be made either by the state or parliament or by the cabinet, any policy which is inconsistent with the provisions of the constitution. Similarly, if there is a dispute between center and state, judiciary will intervene, and the matter will be settled at the judicial level in the Supreme Court. Similarly, there is another requirement is having a constitution, written constitution. India's constitution is a written, keeping in view of all the features, but there are case scenarios where Indian executive exercises more power, Indian center exercises more power, be it the case of national emergencies, be it the case of division of powers between central and states, and that is always being conceded that no Indian case scenario is a federal, but it's of its own kind. We do not imitate any other model. We have created our own model of federalism. So India is a federal system, but with a unitary bias. Similarly, there is a ninth feature is universal franchise without communal representation. So we have an Article 326 which says that which acknowledges the principle of universal adult franchise without any qualification either of sex, property, taxation, or like. But earlier, during British regime, who can be allowed to vote in the election? Those who were zamindars, those who were rich, those who were educated, and those who can pay the taxes. Those were the qualifications. But India adopted that no qualification. Only qualification is that you shall be born as Indian. Second qualification is you shall not be of unsound mind. The third qualification was that the only consider that you shall be adult. If you are an adult, if you are not unsound mind, if you are an Indian, you will have an voting right. So universal adult franchise. This was a revolutionary idea. So the British system made the only 30% adults having a right to vote, but Indian constitution given 100% that all adults who were of 21 years age when India became independent, 21 years age, but with the course of time, we made some changes and we have said that no, 18 years old will also vote in the election. Similarly, there was a poisonous idea of having a separate electorate inserted in Indian body politic by India's Council Act 1909, that is called Parliamentary Reforms, the idea of separate electorates. We said no, that we are not going to have a separate electorates. Everybody will have the same rights. Everybody will have the one vote, one man, one vote, this plurality of system, joint electorate systems we adopted in place of the separate electorates. But certain things that we have considered for the reservation of the seats, we have reserved certain seats for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes and Anglo-Indians. That Anglo-Indian seats which were being reserved is also being removed by the latest amendment in the Indian Parliament. So that India, the Indian features is all about the universal adult franchise. Similarly, and there is another feature called that India is having a compromise between judicial review and parliamentary supremacy. The parliamentary supremacy, that the parliament can make any laws which is it's thought of fit for the best interest of the country. So parliament is empowered to make laws, but at the same time, Supreme Court is also empowered to look at the validity of the law, whether that law is valid, keeping in view of the provisions of the Indian Constitution. So we have thought of that. We will have both Parliament shall be able to make laws, but at the same time, we will have a watchdog institution called judiciary who will be looking at that. We will be having kind of any law which is arbitrary, which is discretionary, which is anti-national, and therefore Supreme Court will look into its nitty-gritty and declare a law to an extent it is null, violating Indian Constitution, null and void. So there is a judicial review. So we have made a balance between the two. There is another feature of the Indian Constitution is that I just told you earlier, that the idea of single citizenship. There are many federal countries like United States of America. There is an idea dual citizenship there, that a citizen shall be a citizen of the United States. A citizen shall also be a citizen of the states. So there are 50 states in the United States. Everyone who is having the membership in the state regions. So two citizenship. You cannot be that. See, Pennsylvania, you must be having a citizenship of the Pennsylvania. You cannot claim it as a part of the Ohio. So the idea is two citizenship in the most of the federal countries, but India has gone with the idea of a single citizenship. So this is also a feature. Independent judiciary. I told you that the whether the judiciary is independent because its appointment, its removal procedures of the judges are quite tough. No political parties can bargain with the judiciary or can dictate the judiciary in the real sense of the term, because their appointment, their removal is being guaranteed by the Constitution, and it is also being stated that only a man of great knowledge and probity and some sincerity will be made a judge. So therefore, that the judiciary worked as an impartial arbiter of the conflict, and it enjoys tremendous independence power, and therefore be it appointment, you see that Indian judges of the High Court, the Supreme Court, are appointed not by the government, but technically it is by the president. But that president is technically bound by the recommendation of the collegium system of the judiciary itself. Similarly, that we are having a very exhaustive, another feature of Indian Constitution is exhaustive list of fundamental rights. So we have a very exhaustive list of fundamental rights. We have 6 fundamental rights with all, whether it is a right to equality, right to freedom, right to against exploitation, right to life and property, constitutional remedy, right to religion. So the exhaustive list of fundamental rights put a limitation on the arbitrary power of the state. So the power of the state is limited with the existence of fundamental rights in our Constitution. The citizens can claim remedies if any state is violating the law, violating the fundamental rights. You as a citizen can go either to High Courts or the Supreme Court and seek remedy. And the High Court and the Supreme Court can issue writs which are there in our Constitution. So another important part of our Constitution is this. Similarly, that there is fundamental duties. We are not only having fundamental rights, we are also having a fundamental duties which was being introduced in our Constitution by means of 42nd Amendment in 1976. The Article 51A was being introduced as part 4A of the Constitution, and it gives you lots of things which are to be observed by every citizen of this country. So, for example, we respect national song, anthem. We also go with the composite culture. We also promote harmony. We also nourish scientific tempo, like this. So there are fundamental duties. So there is a balance between rights and duties in our Constitution. There is a directive principle of the state policy, that is certain guidelines are being issued by the Indian Constitution, saying that these are to be taken into consideration while making laws or policy decisions by the state. So that the interest of the weaker sections, the interest of the women, interest of the disabled class, interest of many general interests were also being catered into the directive principles. And it is being asked that when state is making policy decisions, it must take inspirations from the directive principles of the state policies. So these are some 15 features which I was supposed to discuss as of the India's salient features. And if you have any questions, you can raise your hands. We can have a detailed discussions further on it. Yes, this is all about the features of Indian Constitution.